In a small town stood an old wooden house at the end of a quiet street lined with maple trees. It was a peaceful place where time seemed to slow down. And at the end of that street lived a kind woman named Grandma Rayner, with silver hair as white as snow and a smile as warm as the sun. Every summer, her granddaughter Anaya came to stay with her, and they would spend their days sipping sweet lemonade on the porch swing, listening to the chirping of crickets and watching fireflies dance in the twilight. One day, Anaya asked her grandmother, "Do you know what's hiding in your attic? Is it just old things or something more exciting?" Grandma Rayner chuckled and said, "The attic is full of old things, dusty and boring." But Anaya wasn't so sure. She had heard strange sounds from the attic, whispers in the dead of night and the rustling of unseen creatures. One afternoon, while the rain drummed a steady beat on the roof, the power suddenly went out, plunging the house into darkness. As thunder rumbled outside, Anaya climbed up the narrow staircase to the attic, her heart pounding in her chest. At the top of the stairs, she pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside. A rush of cool air brushed her face, carrying the scent of old paper, candle wax, and a hint of mystery. In the corner stood a wooden chest adorned with carvings of stars and moons. Curiosity burning within her, Anaya approached the chest and lifted the heavy lid. Inside lay hundreds of books bound in leather, velvet, and even metal. Some glowed faintly, casting an ethereal light on the dusty floor, while others whispered softly, as if sharing secrets from beyond the grave. As Anaya reached for one of the books, her fingers brushed against a golden lock, and to her astonishment, it clicked open on its own. The pages fluttered wildly, and suddenly the book burst open, revealing a sight that made Anaya gasp in wonder. Glowing figures stepped out, each more fantastical than the last. A valiant knight in shining armor bowed before her. His armor sparkled with 1,000 tiny stars, and his sword seemed to hum with celestial power. A beautiful fairy emerged, her wings shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow. She hovered gracefully in the air, leaving a trail of sparkling dust in her wake. And then there was a sly talking fox, with fur as red as rubies and eyes that twinkled with ancient wisdom. "Greetings, Anaya," the knight boomed, his voice echoing with the power of 1,000 storms. "I am Sir Orion, sworn protector of these stories." The fairy curtsied, her voice like the tinkling of 1,000 bells. "And I am Lumina, keeper of the light. Welcome to the library." Before Anaya could utter a word, the talking fox sauntered forward, his tail swishing back and forth. "Well met, young reader. It seems the prophecy is unfolding as we speak." He paused for dramatic effect. "But enough about prophecies. What brings you to this dusty old attic?" Anaya hesitated, not quite sure how to respond. How could she explain that she had simply been curious, that she couldn't resist the allure of the unknown? Before she could reply, a loud crash echoed through the attic. One of the books had fallen open, revealing pages filled with dark swirls and shadowy figures. From within stepped a tall, imposing figure shrouded in a flowing black cloak. His face was hidden in the shadows, but 2 glowing red eyes pierced through the gloom. The talking fox gasped, his ruby eyes wide with alarm. "Oh no, it's the Shadow Lord! Quick, hide the light!" Lumina cried, flapping her wings frantically. "He feeds on stories and grows stronger with each tale he consumes." Sir Orion brandished his sword, its celestial glow banishing some of the shadows. "You shall not pass, Shadow Lord. Not while I draw breath." The Shadow Lord laughed, his voice echoing with thunderous power. "Foolish guardians, you cannot defeat me. I am the devourer of stories, and soon this whole library will be mine." He raised a gnarled finger, and with a wave of his hand, the attic lights flickered and dimmed. Some of the once glowing books began to lose their color, their pages turning gray and lifeless. As Anaya watched in horror, the Shadow Lord reached for another book, and with a cruel smile on his lips, he plunged his hand into its depths. The pages rippled and writhed like tentacles, and the Shadow Lord emerged, his eyes blazing with newfound power. "Your feeble attempts at resistance are amusing, but futile," he boomed. "Only a reader can stop me." He turned his burning gaze upon Anaya, who cowered instinctively. "You are the reader, child. You hold the power to shape the stories. Choose wisely, for your decision will determine the fate of the library." The Shadow Lord vanished into the swirling vortex of the book, disappearing from sight. As quickly as he had come, the fairy fluttered to Anaya's shoulder, her voice filled with urgency. "If the Shadow Lord devours too many stories, he will consume the whole library and plunge our world into eternal darkness." She turned to Sir Orion and the Talking Fox, who exchanged grim glances. "We must go after him," Sir Orion said, his voice echoing with determination. "But we cannot do it without you, Anaya. Only you can navigate the labyrinth of stories and bring him back." Suddenly, the attic door burst open, flooding the room with bright light. Startled, Anaya turned to see her grandmother standing in the doorway. Her eyes filled with concern. "What happened? Why is the attic in such a state?" Before Anaya could respond, the fairy placed a finger over her lips, signaling silence. Then, with a gentle touch, she led Anaya back to the book from which the Shadow Lord had emerged. "Don't worry, grandmother," Anaya whispered. "I'll explain everything later. Right now, we have to go." With a final squeeze of her grandmother's hand, Anaya stepped into the book and vanished from sight. Just as she had entered, the pages rippled and writhed, concealing the attic once more. Inside the book, Anaya found herself in a vast, shadowy realm, where the ground beneath her feet seemed to shift and change with every step she took. Towering trees cast long, eerie shadows around her, and the air hung heavy with the scent of decay and forgotten dreams. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig sent shivers down her spine. Ahead, she could hear the sound of distant laughter, and a faint glow flickered through the trees. Drawn by the light, Anaya ventured deeper into the shadowy woods, determined to find the source. The closer she got, the more the trees seemed to close in around her, forming a tunnel of twisted branches and gnarled roots. And then, just as suddenly, the trees parted, revealing a clearing bathed in an otherworldly glow. In the center stood a crumbling stone tower, and from its broken windows streamed beams of light that pierced the gloom. As Anaya stepped into the clearing, the laughter grew louder, echoing around her like the cackle of 1,000 crows. Nearing the tower, Anaya saw the Talking Fox lying on the ground, his fur matted and dull, his eyes clouded with pain. Beside him, Sir Orion lay wounded, his armor dented and his celestial sword dim and lifeless. Lumina hovered nearby, her wings torn and her glow flickering weakly. "You're late," rasped the Talking Fox, his voice barely a whisper. "The Shadow Lord has consumed too many stories. Our powers are fading, and soon he will consume us all." Lumina nodded, her voice trembling. "We need your help, Anaya. You must defeat the Shadow Lord before it's too late." Before Anaya could reply, a cruel voice echoed through the clearing. "So the little reader has come to join the party. How touching." From the top of the tower emerged the Shadow Lord, his form towering and imposing. His eyes burned with a terrifying light, and his hands were stained with the essence of devoured stories. "It's over," he boomed. "Your feeble attempts at resistance have only prolonged the inevitable. Now I will consume the last of your light and plunge this world into eternal darkness." With a wave of his hand, tendrils of darkness shot out, wrapping around Sir Orion and the talking fox, draining their remaining strength. Lumina cried out in alarm, shielding her face with her wings. But the darkness reached out, enveloping her in its suffocating embrace. "No!" Anaya cried, rushing forward. But, as she stepped into the clearing, the Shadow Lord turned his burning gaze upon her. "You cannot save them, child. Only I can bring this world to its rightful end." But then something unexpected happened. A surge of determination and courage coursed through Anaya's veins. With a defiant cry, she stood tall, her eyes blazing with newfound resolve. And so began the epic battle between good and evil, where the fate of the entire library hung in the balance. Who will emerge victorious? Will Anaya be able to save the library and restore balance to the world? Find out in the next chapter of this thrilling adventure.